Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to Baking with Brianna episode 2. We are making an apple pie. I'm a big pie person. I love pie. I also have a special guest who is joining me on today's episode. So without further ado, so here we have about 5 golden delicious apples, and we're gonna start with these, and then if we need any more, we have 2 more apples that we can cut up. I have my apple here with me right now, and I'm just going to quickly rinse this off. We're gonna do that for all the apples. Always make sure to wash your produce before you put it in a pie. And then we will slice the apples and obviously take the core out as well. Oh, and I forgot to mention that we did preheat the oven to 425 degrees. Now my grandma is taking the skin off the apples as well as the core. And how would you say that is like the best way to do that?
I just cut them in half, and then well, like this one, excuse me, cut a slit in there and a slit in this side, and it just kind of falls out. Okay, and then to take this middle part out, I just cut around in a circle.
There we go.
Okay, now you can see that that didn't quite come all the way out, so I have to do it a little bit bigger.
So as my grandma's finishing up chopping up the apples, we're just using this like giant measuring cup bowl thing to put our apples in, and the recipe calls for about 5 cups, so she's just putting in like the apple halves until about 5 cups, and then if we don't have enough, she can cut up a little bit more. So right now we're using Golden Delicious, but sometimes she'll mix in Jonathan apples or do a whole pie just of Jonathan apples because those taste pretty good in pie. So now I'm going to get started on measuring out the dry ingredients while my grandma works on skinning the apples. So we have our flour, sugar, salt, cinnamon, and nutmeg here, and eventually we'll use a little bit of milk as well, in addition to our pre-made pie crust because we are not making our dough fresh today. But I'm gonna get started with measuring those out. So sorry, this is kind of at an awkward angle, but it's the only way that you can see what I'm doing. We're gonna start off with the dry ingredients. So first we need 1 cup of sugar, and I actually already tried to scoop the sugar and it's not really coming out. So sometimes if that happens, I just kind of take the bag and slowly pour it into the cup. I just got a huge chunk of sugar though. And when that happens, you can just take a spoon, and in this case, I'm just using my little tablespoon and try to crush that up, because you definitely don't want a giant chunk of sugar in your mix. Just continue to pour that. This is not the smartest technique because it could overflow, but in this case, it'll have to do. So I'm just kind of crushing that sugar once again with my tablespoon. And I think we've about reached 1 cup. I like to use a knife here to level it out. So that's about 1 cup of sugar. So I have my little green bowl here. We're gonna add that in. Then we need about ½ a teaspoon of cinnamon. So I have my cinnamon here. And ½ teaspoon, pretty small. This actually has little lids, so I'm gonna take this off. Funny story is I actually went to look for the cinnamon this morning, and I found cinnamon in our spice cabinet that was from 2012. So I was like, yep, we're definitely not using that. So once again, hopefully you can see, I just like to use my knife to level it out. It's the best way to guarantee that you have it all the way to the top. Not too much. So and then I'm just gonna use my little teaspoon because I don't have a spoon with me right now, and mix that in, making sure to get out, once again, those clumps of sugar. Okay, so now we are ready to start rolling out our crust, which again is just the Pillsbury pie crust right here. So really you just want to kind of peel it just a little bit. This is the bottom layer to our crust.
Now put it over the, yeah, there you go.
So you're just gonna kind of like slowly roll it as far as you can. Yeah. Okay, so I have my pie crust here, and I'm just gonna put this to the side because now we're ready to mix the apples and the cinnamon sugar. So this is all mixed up. I'm just gonna dump it in. And then I would recommend using like a large spoon or a spatula. You can do whatever and just kind of mix it in. It's a little tough because there's a lot of apples in here, but you're just going to use the spatula to keep mixing it until they're eventually all evenly coated. Okay, so now we have our apples and we are ready to pour them into the pie. So I'm just going to kind of, once again, slowly pour these in using my spatula. And try to evenly space them out as much as possible, but it's okay if they aren't quite, because you can just use a spatula to spread them out again.
And now Brianna is going to put little pieces of butter on the top of the apples before she puts the top crust on. She asked me why, and I honestly can't answer that. It's just something most recipes have. Now you're going to take milk, and you're just going to rub the milk on the edge of the pie crust here. And the reason for doing this is so that it the top crust seals and then the juices won't run out. Brianna's unrolling the top crust. She's going to place it on top.
So now I'm just going to kind of take 2 fingers and lightly press along the edges, and that kind of seals what we were doing with the milk.
This is what I do instead of trying to press it all off and break it off. I just take a pair of kitchen shears and cut around here to make the crust even all over and not a big glob in one area. Now Brianna is going to press the top crust together with the bottom crust to seal it.
So now after you fold over the top and bottom crust, you're just going to kind of take it and do a little pinch with your fingers. And it ends up kind of looking like this. You're just going to once again take your fingers and pinch it. Okay, so now the pie is all finished, and the last step is just to cut some like little slits in the top of the crust. You kind of just do one in the center and then a couple on the edges, and really all this does, we think, is just kind of like let out some of that steam from the apples cooking so that it doesn't like pop off the top crust. So this is what it looks like when it's all finished, and we're ready to put it in the oven. Okay, so our pie is all ready now, and we have it on this little tray so that just in case we have a little bit of like spill over, like we said, it'll catch it and not like end up in the oven. So we're gonna open this up. So yeah, you want to make sure that it stays on there. And there we go. Okay, so the pie's been cooking for about 15 minutes. And I'm going to take what I was talking about earlier, which is a pie crust shield. And I'm going to place it on the outer edge of the crust, just like that, and that will protect the crust from burning. Okay, so we just took the pie out of the oven. It looks delicious, nice and crispy golden brown. But yeah, we'll taste test it later. Okay, so it's the next day, and I realized I forgot to try my pie on camera. I've already taken a few bites, and I like to eat it with a little bit of like ice cream too. It's so good. The crust is like super flaky and just like perfect, honestly. I think it's delicious.